Well, hello everybody. This is Tim Green with Rattle Magazine. Welcome to the Rattlecast. We're the biggest freewheeling live stream poetry podcast on the planet, in your ears, not in your laptops. Our guest for number 313 is Chiwenite Onyekwelu. He'll be with us in a few minutes, but before we begin, I should say that Rattle is a publication of the Rattle Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit working to promote the practice of poetry. We've been in continuous publication since 1995 and are unaffiliated with any other organization. We just do all this. We love poetry, and I know you do too, so please do click on that like button and share. Make sure you're subscribed. Ring the bell for notifications. Whatever you can do to help poetry spread around the internet would be much appreciated. The more people click like, the more people get to see this later, because that's how algorithms work, and you can do your part by clicking something now, whether you're watching on iTunes or Spotify later. You can leave reviews there. You can click like on YouTube or Facebook or give it a heart or something. Anything you can do helps out. Now we're going to start out like we always do with our Poets Respond poet. And Ingrid Jacobsen is here, who had a powerful poem about ice, which is something that we have so many poems coming in about. Hey, Ingrid, how you doing? I'm doing great. It's great to see you. Thanks for being here. And so tell us how this poem came to be and what inspired you to write it.
Well, it's a funny poem because number one, I guess I wish I was never inspired to write it. Um, and Number two, I think I wrote it backwards. So I started with this abstract stuff about Jason, about just observing the scenery that I was around during a lunch break. But I couldn't stop thinking about the imagery coming out of Chicago, and looking around at these sort of passersby, and when do we become a bystander, or when do we intervene in a scene, and when does our job really take us away from the integrity that we had maybe growing up. So I was thinking about all these things as I wrote the poem.
Yeah, and it's a poem that's we'll read it in a second, but everyone will see if they haven't read it already. It's a very creative way that you use language, and you jump around and move a lot. What was the writing process like? Did you know it was going to go in this kind of surprising direction?
No, no, it surprised me, I guess. I try and write a bit every day, and when I feel like I can't write, I just describe things around me and transcribe things that people are saying. And I watch my own internal monologue, or the thoughts that I have, almost like they are passersby in my physical realm. So I kind of notate that too, and I start to interlayer these things. But it just started like a sketch exercise.
Yeah. Well, why don't you go ahead and read the poem Ice Dance?
Ice dance. Jason said it was all just light from windows, just light that had fallen and had stained the ground. Ground which would go away, said Jason. Stains on the ground through windows. Just light, he said. Just Jason, standing with his government name and identification badge, and memorized numerals and credentials he did not give, but allowed to swirl as suggestions. Proof in the negative, sticking to him like any other stain. Are you who you say you are, Jason? Now nameless, behind the mask, face now Jasonless, still with hands. Former flippers of burger and players of ball now catch Ave Marias, detain them in the dugout of some sunny afternoon in Chicago. Jason, Jameson, Jameson, Joshua, John, Jean, Juan, Johnny, Jack, Jason, we are glued to you like a dancer on ice, gliding on around the ring of the rest of our life, now instanded, watching you receive and enact an increasingly worrying set of orders, and inside of us, another arena with equal chill, where we stretch, imagine running, the inevitable fall, imagine doing the dance, either part, the silence from the risers of uncalled upon names, mute power of all those lap-held hands.
Yeah, just a powerful poem about the dance of power and what happens. Thanks so much, Ingrid, for sharing that poem with us on Sunday and for joining us today to read it. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So once again, that was Ingrid Jacobsen with Ice Dance. That was Sunday's Poets Respond poem. If you've got a poem that responds to current events, anything in the news going on in the past week, feel free to share it by Friday night at midnight. Then we publish at least one poem on Sunday. That's our Poets Respond series. Go to rattle.com to find the submissions there. Also, if you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe to our daily poem by email. You get the poems like that, like Ice Dance by Ingrid Jacobsen, in your inbox every morning, including Sundays. All you got to do is go to rattle.com. All the way down at the bottom, it says email sign up to get the daily poem by email. Now we're going to take a quick break and go to our main guest, Chiwenite. So sit tight, and we'll be right back with a whole bunch more poetry. And we're back. Thanks for your patience. Like I said, today's guest is Chiwenite Onyekwelu. His debut poetry chapbook, Exiled, was published by Red Bird Chapbooks, and his work appeared in 2 recent issues of Rattle. That was the Tribute to Food Poems and the Guzzles issue. So really exciting talking to him. He was shortlisted for 2024 Isele Magazine Poetry Prize. In 2023, he won the Hudson Review's Frederick Morgan Poetry Prize and was a finalist for the Alpine Fellowship Prize, as well as the Writivism Poetry Prize. Chiwenite served as editor-in-chief at the School of Pharmacy, Nnamdi Azikiwe University, where he recently completed his undergraduate studies. So I'm really excited to talk to you. Chiwenite, how you doing? Great to be here. So glad you join us.
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm good, Timothy. It feels great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, definitely my pleasure. And we love, for years I've noticed how vibrant the poetry scene is in Nigeria. And so it's going to be really fun to talk about that in particular. And of course, your work in the sciences too is interesting, in medicine. But let's start out just reading a poem. Do you want to start with Late Night Stroll?
Yes, sure.
Uh-oh. I think we lost him for a second. Hang on. I think he has to reconnect. Yeah, so he's on a phone, and I think he X'd out while going to the poem. So he should be back any moment. All right, sorry about that. We have the technical difficulties fixed, I believe. And Chiwenite is back with us. Hey, Chiwenite, sorry about the troubles, but it's so glad to have you here. Glad we figured it out.
Yeah, thank you very much, Timothy.
Yeah. So, do you want to go ahead and read Late Night Stroll now?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
So, late night stroll. Outside the city, the sky is starting to drown itself in too much light. We walk with the deference of night birds, walk until a red Ford drags over, the music too fucking loud, and he wants to know where is the mall. I point him away towards the darkness, and suddenly it feels like a betrayal. The way I said nothing about the flock of geese lying flat buried on the road, their wings unwrapped, the soft of their chests submitting to the tar, as if in prayer, as if waiting for something holy to reach them. It's Christmas. It's that time of the year everyone appears eager to set something on fire. My friend is telling a story about our childhood. The night we played Umbo, sang our bodies open to feed it joy. But most of what I remember has to do with departure, like TY and Ada and Chinedu and their still cold tombs. How each departure had been so exact, like an arrow point, like the serpent asking Eve to take nothing except a bite. Above us, the moon squats motionless, and I remember the ford. How far away is it? In one imagination, the geese fling themselves upwards into the air, the road unlittered, their breastbones not yet popped. In another, they don't make it past the windshield. Something thumps again and again on the tires, and inside, his music still plays.
Yeah, that's a poem from Exile, Chiwenite's new chapbook. That was Late Night Stroll. So tell us about your background in poetry, how you started writing, and what was it that inspired you? Was there a moment that you realized you would be someone who writes poems?
Yes, actually. So I started out in the sciences, never really had the chance to learn about writing in a traditional sense of it. But I think the moment it happened was in secondary school, in what you call high school in the United States. So we were asked to write a project on, you can create a couple of poems, you can write short stories, anything that you can submit on. It was an English class. So I decided to write poems. I was already writing short stories, but I decided to try my hands on poetry. And when I submitted it, the teacher, a very nice woman actually, she looked at the poems I submitted. She read them and for a few minutes, and then she turned to me and gave me back the paper, the book, and she said, "These are very bad poems." And I was a very stubborn kid then. I was really stubborn, and when she said that, I felt I was going to write and write and write until I got better at it. And I think that was the point I knew, yeah, I was going to do this.
Yeah, well, that's so funny that it was that saying they were bad. That was not what I expected to be coming there. So what was it that how do you find, like, what's pleasurable about the process of writing poetry? Like what did it, that was the thing, that drive to be better at it made you pursue it. But then what's the thing that made you stick? Like what do you get out of writing poems?
Yeah, what I find most enticing about the process is that it slows me down. You know, we are in a fast-moving world, and especially this part of Nigeria where I live in, everything moves so quickly, and you come out and there are the cars, the people, the government, everything moves so quickly. But when I sit down to write, it allows me to slow down a bit and then look at things from a second person perspective. So I'm able to see things differently. And for me, it's one of those things I find fascinating because it calms me, it provides a moment of catharsis. And then there's also the small joy that comes when you are done with writing. So when I finish that, it's like a moment where there's so much energy coming out. I find both of them enticing. Both of them are what drives me.
Yeah. Well, it definitely is. We can all relate to that. Let's hear another poem. The next one up was Resurrection.
So, resurrection. You are not dead. Resurrection for TY. In this poem, you are not dead. You do not come to me lying on your back, your face gentle and quieted into sleep. I like to think the year is backwards until we are small and together again. After class, we play tennis till the sun recedes. None of us are aware of how your body betrays itself. Here, I wipe you clean from all that dust, lead you upwards into a room slippery with white, and the doctor, this time around, cuts you open, only on the right spot, leaves nothing to remind us that you could have lived. Here, could you have lived? Nothing reminds us. Live. Cut open your right spots. This time around, the doctor, slippery with white, leads you upwards to all that dust, cleans you, wipes you. Your body betrays itself. None of us are aware that the sun recedes. After tennis class, we were once together and small. I like to think the year is backwards, your face gentle and quieted into sleep, your back lying on the floor. You do not come to me, dead. You are not in this poem.
Yeah, another beautiful one. That was Resurrection, again from the book Exiled by Chiwenite Onyekwelu. And Chiwenite, so once you started writing poetry, it is one of the things we've noticed over the years. We had a tribute to African poets years ago, and it was mostly because we started getting around 2015 or so, just so many wonderful submissions from Africa, from Nigeria in particular. And it was really clear over the years that there's a really great and vibrant poetry scene there. And I think even in the chat windows already, you have so many supporters and fans who are joining the chat and saying hi. And it does seem like a very vibrant and supportive place for poetry in Nigeria, despite the political tensions and atmosphere that might, suggest otherwise. So what is it like? What is the poetry scene like for you in Nigeria? What's your experience been with it?
Okay, so like you said, it's vibrant, and recently there have been lots and lots of writers, especially poets. There was a point when in Nigeria it seemed as though poetry was for the elites. In the 20th century, when you had Chinua Achebe, you had Wole Soyinka, so people took a break. There was a moment, a gap, but recently more and more Nigerians are starting to write and write. And what you see online is what some persons would want to describe as the Nigerian spirit. It's normal for a Nigerian to see where someone else is doing something, and if it's another Nigerian, it's normal for them to want to say, "Oh, I heard you," whether or not they know what exactly you are doing. But it's a Nigerian thing, the way people would use the word. And yes, there are young persons, and there is, I think, one of the biggest driving factor, in fact, is there are stages of it. The writers that are coming up, there are persons that started writing this year, last year, and there are people who have been writing for 20 years. But to an extent, there is no wall. You can't find walls dividing them. So even people who have been writing for 20 years, for instance, still allow themselves to be accessible to people who just started writing this month. And I think that is the biggest driving factor, is one of the reasons why most Nigerians are starting to think, oh, if there is this amount of support. If people are willing to look at me despite the fact that I don't know what I'm doing, then I should do this. I can actually be part of this. So it's more of the vibrant nature and then the support that keeps drawing people in and into the community.
Yeah, that's really wonderful to hear. I've heard too that there are just a lot of readings, like stages and at cafes, and there you can find poetry all over the place. Is that your experience too?
Okay, yeah. It's not particularly my experience because I live in the rural aspect of Nigeria. But for people in Lagos, there are lots of reading. People in Kano, you have the Aki Festival in Lagos. You have the Kano Festival. You have in Benin. But for us down here, we share poems the way friends share information. We just meet, read poems in schools, in places, in the university. We have constructs, but it's not as big and as widespread as you would find in Lagos, where there are too many places people gather together to read poems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's just really great to hear. Let's hear the next poem. Last Game.
Last game. The last game could have been like every other one. Ball spinning, your backstrokes trumping across the net like a cannonade. Except, of course, when the Beanie boy comes around, beats you soft and hard till you start to blow out of bare light. But the last tennis was never so. Throughout the game, you missed his stroke, the ball for landing. It seemed for a moment you were not there. You must have been somewhere all at once, tucked away between the eon and spinning of time's wheels. You lost each game, slipped that one time the ball aimed straight at your bat. Stupid us. We should have known. What's a game after all when the fluid in your brain was thick as gel? When, unknown to us, you'd been slit open by a dog, your soft core turned inside out, then injected with gadolinium here and there before he peered at your insides with the MRI. It's been so many years now. Still, the boys talk of you each time we meet. We come around most holidays, bats in hand, nearly two-thirds of us sprouting a beard. The joke is you never left. It must be the breeze that fiddles the ball each time someone positions his hand and misses a stroke.
Yeah, another beautiful one that was Last Game by Chiwenite Onyekwelu. And so you started writing poetry and you went into the medical field though. So what was it that drew you to become a pharmacologist? And I assume you wanted to do both things at the same time. Is that always the ambition?
Yes, I discovered poetry earlier before I discovered pharmacy. It's actually pharmacy. So I was already writing poetry. I started poetry. I wrote my first poem in 2017, I think, yes. But then I got into pharmacy later. So I didn't discover both of them at the same time, I would say. I didn't discover both of them. I was already a poet, and then poetry was more like something I was passionate about. And then suddenly I realized that I could be in pharmacy, and somehow it seemed as if it was related to poetry because a good amount of my undergraduate life was, spent in the lab looking at microorganisms on a slide. And it was like that with poetry. You have to sit down, analyze things. It's like you're looking at things more deeply than someone else and a non-poet will look at them. So at some point, I realized that both of them were two different things, but to an extent, they meshed somewhere. And
yeah,
that
well,
was why I
that's
never
fascinating to
stopped.
see. Yeah, it's like your love of digging down into how things work. You could apply it in both places really well, into the language and into the pharmacy work too. And you see a lot of time in a lot of these poems, medical terminology and the things you've learned in school come up into the poems too. Is that something that you think about intentionally, of bringing that scientific understanding and insight into your poems? Or is it more that that's your world that you're surrounded by and that's where the poems appear because of that? Is it something you think about and do intentionally?
Yes, at first I was worried that if I use some of these words, maybe it would make the poems, a bit difficult to understand. Maybe people would struggle a lot. But at a point, I realized that this was part of my personal life. So these are words that come up to me on a daily basis, where I stay, everything. And I realized that there was no point trying to remove them from my work. I just have to find a way to use them properly. And yes, and then you would also realize that some of the poems I write, where I use those words, you would realize that these are places that they would fit in. And then I would just decide, okay, since this is part of you, then it's okay to just put in this word.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say I do it intentionally and somehow unintentionally, since it's already a part of me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, there aren't many poets that have insight into other fields as complicated as that too. At least in the United States. I mean, we had a scientist poets issue when we found about 24 of them maybe working in different fields while also writing poetry, but it wasn't that common. And I imagine it's not that common in Nigeria either. And why do you think that is? Like, why, given that, especially in Nigeria, this poetry scene is so vibrant, like we already talked about, you'd think that as part of a balanced life, maybe writing poems would be an important part. We did have one doctor on an episode a couple years ago who uses poetry in his practice dealing with patients. They'll write about, what's going on with them health-wise as part of a therapy type session. And he had, I think, a poetry roundtable with doctors who would write poems too about their experiences. And that really helped the sort of the psychological side of, all of that, the difficulty of being in a high stress profession like that too. But why is do you think more people don't follow along in your footsteps and have their feet in both places, have, a really intellectual science oriented era, but also this art area too?
Okay, so I would say it's comes from a certain bias. It comes from a certain bias. So when people are in the arts, they are assumed to be in the arts, they are artsy. And when people are in the sciences, they are believed to be in the sciences. I remember when people got to know that I write poetry in my university, I think that was when I was in 200 level. So some persons started calling me poet. I would meet people at the field, or maybe while I was in class, and they would say poet. But it was not a compliment. As at that time, it was not a compliment. It was a way of saying, it was more of mockery. I had this one guy that would always call me poet, even when it was not necessary. So I think there is this bias with science students that if you are in the sciences, you don't necessarily have to write poems or write stories. It's for people in the arts. I know, and I think this is why many persons in the science, even people who could have been poets, people who should be writing stories and making paintings, they just because of this bias, they just decide to focus on things that are more science inclined and then leave poetry for people in the arts.
Mm-hmm.
I would say
Yeah,
that's why.
yeah, I agree. I find that too. Like there's a specialization that happens, and especially I think in the sciences where, if you're not an expert in one specific narrow field, you don't want to comment even on other things that you're not the credentialed expert in. And so maybe that makes people more hesitant to participate in, speculative fields like the arts where you sort of have to move around a lot of different topics to be successful. So maybe that's part of the issue too. But it's so cool that you do both. Do you want to read the next poem up? Daily Routine of Waking Up.
Yes, definitely. daily routine of waking up. Mostly it begins with the bed, the soft yellowness of my room. Today again, I won't mistake the thin gloss of paint for a lingering ghost. I've been like this since after our last game, since the MRI, since those gloved hands lowered my friend TY into the soil. I mean, isn't that the way grief enunciates? Last night, a held journal, the one I read standing 2 feet away from a sizzling pan, explained that depression too is a mental disorder. And I googled the difference: grieving, depression, lingering sadness. I'm not sure where the line begins to join or if. I just know the mood's been here for far too long and it keeps wanting to be fed. I set the table and then I'm food. In a biography, the artist Vincent van Gogh pulls a sunflower towards his chest. In the same, he pulls a gun. See how quickly depression exchanges a petal with something soft, with something sharp. I know, I know because I too am trying to heal. In the meantime, I need to use the bathroom, scrub this body clean, use the mirror and practice my best face. It's a brand new day. I have a class to attend and Lord knows I will.
Yeah, so this daily routine of waking up. Another poem with a lot of emotional resonance. And there's so much emotion in your poems. I mean, there's a rawness to that, of getting them on the page, which is what really makes them stand out, I'd say. Do you feel any hesitancy to put your feelings so plainly on paper like that? Or is it a relief in a release to get them out?
I think I would say I've experienced a transition. So initially, when I started poetry, as at the year I started poetry, I had this friend TY who I wrote about. So he died. It happened so quickly. He died on the night of his surgery. As I started poetry, I already had it in mind that I wanted to talk about this because it felt like talking about it. There was no one to talk about it with. I was a boarder in school, so coming back home, no one knew him, and I wanted to just talk about it. So I wrote, you would find his story in Exile, for instance. But now that I've gotten to this point, it's been years from now that I've gotten to this point, I feel hesitant to put out some of my feelings on paper. And I don't know whether that is a good thing or a bad thing, but I think it comes with, getting to this point where I feel, what if I just decide to write poems without um, talking about this? And this particular knowledge was inspired by the fact that I realized that sometimes talking about things didn't really make them go away. I mean, I talked about it. I talked when my dad died. When my dad died, I wrote poems, several poems about it, but it didn't make it go away. It kind of made it, yeah, the pain reduced, but I remembered it more compared to if I didn't write about it. So now I'm at crossroads. I'm thinking, do I do this? Do I just tell things the way they are, or do I just, you know, leave out, allow time to do away, and then write poems without really this emotional? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what would you say is the driving force? Because with poems that emotionally powerful, it feels like the release of that, like the catharsis, is a big part of it. But it's really interesting to hear you say that writing about things more makes you think of them more, which makes the grief last longer too, which is not something you hear people sort of admit, I guess, very often. And if that's not the driving force, then what is it that pushes you to get these poems out and want to share them?
So I I don't really talk like that much. I mean, I have friends and all, but sometimes coming back to the paper, to the blank pages, usually the way I know to talk about some things, especially when they are intense. There are things I wouldn't, want to sit down and tell someone, oh, this has happened to me, oh, I'm going through this. So usually when I come to paper, it feels easier, like journaling, and I can tell them. And yeah, I would admit that at that moment and maybe afterwards, it makes it easier. It reduces what I feel. And it's part of the driving factor. You just want to push all of this somewhere. But at the same time, I also feel like it makes it last longer because, you're writing and writing about this and you're telling it in several ways. But of course, it reduces what you feel at the moment. But so the driving factor is that catharsis, like you said, that emotional uplifting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, one of the other things that happens so much in your poems, you reference things like talking about Van Gogh's biography. It's clear that you read widely, given the quotes and different things that you're citing in your poems. Is part of it being in conversation with all of the authors and writers and historians that you're reading, and having a way to organize your thoughts and responses to that reading material? Because it feels like you read a lot, given the poems in exile.
Yes, I do. I do. I love biographies, art, Van Gogh, Michelangelo, and then sometimes when I read these, I read, them, or even outside them, let's say I read something about the Greek mythology. Sometimes when I'm writing poetry, it's as if they are there, just wanting to get into the poem. And I love the conversation with Van Gogh, especially because in exile, he had a role to play. You know, he had a life that I was trying to describe. He was a good man, and then at one point he placed a gun to himself and, he killed himself. And also, yeah, I read a lot, and whenever I want to write, it seems as if these things I've read, they want to get into the poem. So I'll have to find a way, figure out a way. Oh, is it what he's trying to get in? Is it Athena from Greek mythology? Is it Michelangelo? Is it Ankassin or Le Glog? Who is trying to get into my work at this point? So I just find a way to put the character or the person.
Yeah, yeah, and so in this book, Exiled, the memory and absence and loss are such a presence that they're almost a character, I'd say, in the book. And how did that feel? Is a role that played in crafting the collection, putting it together, where these themes kept coming up over and over again? Is that something that you were conscious of as you organized the chapbook, and is that what you were organizing it around?
No, I wasn't. When I wrote Exiled, I wasn't thinking about it. I was angry. At the point I wrote Exiled, I was angry. So, it's like growing up, for instance, and sometimes it takes time for us to, get to understand our fathers. Sometimes it takes growing up to really see, oh, okay, maybe this person didn't do this correctly, but I get you now. But when I wrote Exile, I was younger and I wanted answers for some things. Why is it happening like this? Why can't it be like what I see elsewhere? And I was angry. I didn't plan to, you know, write poems that I was just angry. And each time I got angry at one thing, I would write it down. And then eventually I came back and looked at what I've created. And it seemed like, oh, over this period of time, over this 1 year or more than 1 year, we've been talking and talking about this. And now you have a book of rants, a book of anger. And the name Exile actually came because I left home out of anger. I stayed, so I didn't really want to go back home. I was staying more in school, spending a lot of time in school. So it felt like, just leaving home.
Yeah. Well, let's read the title poem next, Exiled, from the book.
So, exiled. At one point during childhood, we had to die to keep things alive. Our bloodied shirts as proof. I watched my father fluctuate, legs wobbly as a church bell, beer on the cleanest table. All the while a child was breaking. The woman who raised me taught me everything I know about healing. Because men, in fact, are probable. Because, boy, you better learn to walk up to your daddy and call him daddy. I knew my split tooth, knew if I drew it in enough, I could soften the pain. Even this is what healing for. My mother teary-eyed on those rainy nights where he came home drenched and dangling. The rain we knew, but that wetness was too much pain. I stood there on hangnails and cried until all the lights went out. They say sunrise knows when to arrive despite the night. I have waited my whole life for something bright. In the end, either death or love would reach me faster than even the warmth of dawn. If I'm lucky, both. I still want to be called son without cursing, without a hand searching for truth. When what I love returns, I want to be here, shiny and bloodless, like a dagger unused. I want to reach out, but instead of a slaughter, let me reflect light.
Yeah, so that's another powerful poem. There's the title poem, Exiled, by Chiwenite Onyekwelu. And it's another one of these poems where there's a balance between the personal and the political, it seems. It's always at play in these poems. The broader pictures, there's a personal sorrow, and then sort of an intrusion of the outside political environment that ruptures that, I think, very often in these poems. How did you navigate that, playing with the personal versus the political in your poems? When to use the personal as a political tool and vice versa? How do you negotiate those two different topics?
Okay, so I've never really thought about it like that, but now when I think about it, I would say the person that comes out naturally, and then as I go through the work, as I create the work, there are certain points, at certain edges, when I would realize that I could go beyond the personal and decide to talk about something that is universal. Otherwise, it would just be a poem of lamentation. So usually I start out wanting to tell my story, and then I get to a point where I'm like, okay, we could slow down here and say something that someone else could relate to, even if they are not me. And then that's where I bring in the political. So this is a more conscious act. The personal is less conscious because it's just me telling a story I'm conscious of.
Yeah. I saw in an interview with you said that just to write generally in Nigeria is a political act. Can you say more about that and how poetry fits within the political structure? Within, what makes it a political act, I guess.
Okay. So what I strongly believe that every form of poetry is political in its way. So it doesn't really have to be a poem about war or about guns and or to be political or about protest, because regardless of who we are, wherever we write from, there is a very large world. And if you're writing from the United States or you're writing from Nigeria, wherever you're writing from, it's someone in one part of the world screaming to the rest of the world, this is what it's like to be where I live. These are the experiences of the people surrounding me. And that on its own is political. So this is why I see poetry as a political art, regardless of the kind of poem we write.
Yeah, well, that's a great answer. I think totally true. What do you think is distinct about poetry in Nigeria? I mean, you definitely you publish your poems all over the world, and you definitely read widely all over the place. What do you think is unique about what's being written in Nigeria?
I think it's emotional. It's spontaneous. Our poem, I would say that the Nigerian poems read like if if you were to taste some of Nigerian food, then you would see the pepper and everything. So there's this energy in works but Nigeria needs, as if people are very emotional. So they write from a very emotional place, from a tender place. And it's, I remember I was part of a team of judges for a particular contest, and reading through the works, it made me realize from, stepping away from being a poet to being a judge, I saw something about Nigerian poets. It's as if as though everyone is hurting. So people write from a very emotional place, and then the poems can be spontaneous, like people just trying to shout and shout and shout, and it's that tenderness, that emotion. I think that is what makes Nigerian poetry distinct.
Yeah, when we were putting together the African poets issue, in which, as we mentioned, I think it was like 65% probably of the poets were from Nigeria itself. And the thing that stood out, I felt like it was there was a passion to the poetry because there was a sense that it mattered more than it does other places. In America, we even on this Rattlecast show, we sort of make fun of our place in poetry fairly often because nobody buys books, people don't read it. So often, nobody knows who the poet laureate is, and you could find one bookshelf at the bookstore and it's like this wide, and it's poets who've been dead for 100 years. So we sort of have this, I don't know, we're like downtrodden in the fact that poetry can matter. And it feels like in Nigeria, there's a sense that poetry can and does matter. And do you think that that's part of it? That's why it's so emotional, that there's actually things at stake that people feel? And how has that developed a way of looking at poetry that it does matter like that? Because it just feels so much like it does reading all these poems.
Yes. So it would also partly have to do with being in the country that we are in. In the United States, I would say that there is a system. I mean, I'm not there, but from what we see over here, there is a system and things work. I mean, every country has where things just seem as if they are not working. But in the United States, things work. You have your voice and, it's heard. Your voice matters compared to if you are in Nigeria. So here in Nigeria, for instance, you have people on the 20th of October 2020 during EndSARS. You have countless number of, I hope I'm saying the right thing now. I hope someone is not listening, but you have several people shot down at Lekki toll gates, several Nigerians, and it happens all the time. Mm-hmm. A couple of months ago, people were butchered in their home. It happens like it's common. And then we tend to scream and scream, and the government doesn't listen. So for writers, because we live in a country where your voice doesn't matter, there's nothing you can do. And so writing is the only way where we can talk about these things. And I think that's where the passion comes from, because this is the only thing you have. Outside of it, this is where the voice matters. So we just have to put all of that energy into this very thing
Yeah. Well, really well said, and that makes a lot of sense. I should say at this point in the show, if anybody has any questions for Chiwenite, please leave them in the chat window, either on Facebook or YouTube. And if it helps if you put all in bold question, so I can see that it's a question as I'm scrolling through. Also, if you haven't clicked the like button yet, there are twice as many people watching live as have clicked like so far, and it really helps the poetry spread farther if you do click the like button. So make sure you do that. Also, click the bell for notifications to subscribe to our channel. We're almost at 7,000 subscribers. It'd be fun to get up there. I want to get up to 10. That'd be really good, 5 digits. So subscribe and help us out in that way. We have 3 more poems left to share, Chiwenite, and they're newer poems. So why don't we start with one of the newer ones, Exiled, Adam and Hawa Look Inwards for Other Answers.
Okay. Exiled, Adam and Hawa look inwards for other answers. Frankly speaking, Adam could have been anyone. In Norse mythology, they call him Askar, meaning ash tree. meaning fresh out of the shores. Too much of light, and there you are blind. How I too was guilty of that. Guilty like those women in old Virginia who did nothing but pick cotton and steal glances at the honors books. Guilty because knowledge, she was warned, is a knife pointing inwards. The Holy Book is not a perfect guide for porn. Oh, how Adam sounds like a dam. In science, I learned the human body is made mostly of water. Tethered, Adam and Hawa slit themselves through the narrowest canal. How many jokes we've had to make about their downfall, as if the body, with all its hunger, is not our original sin. We tame it only as momentarily as a horse tames a speed. Oh Lord, like them, I want to be something capable of escape. For every wall, bless me with a mallet. If everything I want hangs on the other branch of fear, give me a serpent with the smoothest tongue, and forgive me, and forgive me.
Yeah, it's a beautiful new poem by Chiwenite. Exiled Adam and Hawa look inwards for other answers. I was trying to find it scrolling back up on the chat window, but there was a question about languages in Nigeria, as there are several languages that are widely spoken. English is the official language, as I understand, but there are other languages too, especially in the area you are. How does the role of different languages play in your craft of poetry? Is that something that you move between or think about?
Yes, it is. So there are different languages. There are about 250 languages in Nigeria. So I speak Igbo. I speak Igbo chiefly, and then there are people that speak Yoruba and Hausa and the rest of them. As someone that speaks Igbo, my language, Igbo language is, it's not very direct. It's a tender language in a way. For instance, there are words we don't have a word for sex, for instance, in Igbo language. There is no word for it. So we just translate it as to push a cup down, pushing a cup. So as someone that is Igbo and I grew up in an Igbo community, I found it, influence my craft in the way that my words tend to come out more tender. I mean, compared to someone that grew up in a Yoruba town, for instance, their language is different from ours, so I would expect that it would influence their craft. But for me, it affects my craft because there are things that it just feels as if I'm pushing back. I could talk about them, but not directly, just find a way to put them. And I don't even know this is happening. But it's because this is how I talk, even when I want to talk outside of writing. So yes, it influences my craft in that way.
Yeah, well, that definitely makes sense, and a beautiful way too to influence it. You mentioned earlier, poetry being very spontaneous in Nigeria. So it makes me wonder about the craft and the revision that goes into your poems. What is the writing process like? It's really interesting because, of course, as somebody who reads a lot and loves literature, you can push out poems in sort of one sitting, but there's a lot of talk all the time about revising and changing things dramatically. How much revision of these poems do you do, and how spontaneous is the process for you?
Okay, I do revision. I mean, even with some of the spontaneity, I still revise a lot. But when I say spontaneous, I mean that usually sometimes you just come in and there's this energy. You just want to put something down, something you just saw on the outside. But I think where I am currently, I'm stepping gradually away from the spontaneity. It still happens because I need it, since I'm also in this other aspect of my life where I have to look at pharmacy. So I don't always have so much, I mean, I wish I would have all of that time to write consistently. So I still rely on spontaneity to an extent. But for me, my creative process is in a way that I My creative process is in such a way that I usually try to do what I'm doing, to finish up what I'm doing at that stage of writing. I still come for revision, which happens a couple of times, but most of my revision are done during that first sitting when I'm still writing. Before I'll still do a lot of other revisions, but most times my poems come out complete when I'm done at that moment.
Yeah. Well, let's hear. We have 2 poems left. Let's hear one last song.
One last song for the before the breakup, we had a surplus of love. Not to be here, but we are in the middle of it. A dead weight, two cloves shedding their flowers for thorn. Ross Gay wrote it first. We are true. It breaks my heart to think about love as a boat that sinks. Those long nights at the chicken shop, the WhatsApp calls, the book talks. Each time we leapt into the bed, testing, like lovers do, my mouth circling you from shoreline to sea. Love, I know now, does not need to slam in order to break. It happens in the little things, like my insistence, your crude jokes, like those times while arguing, we lit our tongues on fire just to see what we could burn. Oh, my lonely life around me like a more. That was Ankasen and now it's me. How, like O'Hara, I thought myself the least difficult of men. But breakup slices a person open, exposes their rot. There is sadness in the same room where once we laughed until we shook. There is a garden where you left a kiss. What I'll do with it, I don't know yet. For now, I think about the man in Yeats' poem. That man, the one who gave all of his heart and still lost.
Yeah, another beautiful poem. That was One Last Song by Chiwenite Onyekwelu, a newer poem. There's a question here from Dick Westheimer. He wanted to know, as a poet whose work intersects with the political, are you putting yourself in harm's way?
I would say it depends on who is reading. I would say it depends on who is reading.
Hmm.
And the government the government here changes very quickly. So we've had a recent change and it's not a very good government. So I wrote a poem. I wrote a particular poem that I titled Folk. It was a poem I wrote out of anger about the killings and everything that is happening. And I had to take it out. I had to take it out of my bio, out of a lot of places because sometimes you don't know who is reading.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say maybe they have, I don't know, you don't know. I would say, yeah.
Yeah. Back to the craft of the poetry itself. A lot of people are mentioning the last line being so powerful, and there are a lot of really wonderful last lines in your poems. How do you figure out how to end a poem? Like, what makes a good ending to you, and how do you know when a poem is finished?
Okay, so there's this practice. I don't know if it's an American thing also, but there's this practice we have here where if you are eating food, you have to eat the food first before you eat the meat. So the meat is usually like a reward for eating the food, you know. So when I write poems, I kind of think about poetry that way. So to end it, I usually want to, go in with something that, to an extent, or at least that is the way I think, something that beats what I've already done. So it's intentional. It's intentional for me. The last line, the first line as well. So the process, there was something I don't know if I sufficiently answered the question, if I missed something.
No, I think so. I think, yeah, and there's a way that the poetry sort of sings in a last line. There's like a special feeling of closure to it, I think, that has a good last line. And so that last one, which we were talking about in One Last Song, that was, for now I think about the man in Yeats' poem, that man, the one who gave all his heart and still lost. And turning back on what you were writing about there, there's a finality to it that makes the poem feel complete, I guess, is what people are referring to. And does that happen in the revision process, or when you get to that point, do you know that that's the end?
Okay, in most cases, it happens in the writing process, but there have been points where I just wrote and I wrote and it didn't end. I couldn't find something to end the poem with. So, but usually it happens in the revision process, and I think the way I do it is I try not to think about it. I don't know who I learned it from, but I saw it some time ago in the internet where someone said, "Don't think about where the poem is going, let the poem lead the way." So usually when I'm writing, there is this, this desire to just think about the lines, but I try not to think about them. And when I'm getting to the end, I know I'm getting to the end because the poem is closing. It's a poem I've been following without thinking about where I'm going. And then it gets to a point where it's as if the poem is trying to close up. So when I get to that point where I can no longer continue writing, I just know, okay, this is the point where you end it. And I try to do it on the spur of the moment, especially the last lines. I don't want to leave them to linger because I might come back, read the poem, and I struggle with it. So even if I don't do it completely, what I do is when I get to the last line, I just place something, anything there. It might not be what the last line would be, but knowing that I've written down a skeleton, something that I can always modify and modify into a last line, yeah, it helps me a lot, I would say.
Yeah. So before we finish out with the last poem, what can you tell us about what you're working on now in the different, do you have any books in process? What's coming next, and how has your poetry evolved, if at all, from EXILED?
Okay, so yeah, currently I'm working on a different kind of book. I would say that while exiled is a poem of anger, being angry at a father and all, the work I'm working on now, the poems I'm working on now are more happy poems that are trying to reimagine things. So I'm writing more about, a son's love for his father. So I think about those moments. Sometimes when, someone is angry, we tend to forget the little moments that were really exciting. So I have works I'm writing now, but they are the opposite of exiled. So there are works that are picking out those places where exiled missed out because it was angry and all. So it's currently what I'm doing now. And then about the future, I would say I'm also in the stage of applying for an MFA, a master's in fine arts, creative writing, poetry in the US, and this is the application stage. So that's currently where I am now. Just
that's really wonderful. Best of luck. One of the questions, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to find who asked, was how can I find it? It was somebody asked if if there's any way. Yeah, it was Deborah Elfenhartz said, might Chiwenite travel to the U.S. to grace us with a reading tour? And so maybe with the MFA program, maybe we could get a reading tour out of you. That would be bad. Do you know where you're thinking about going?
Yeah, I have places in mind, but it's a dicey process. It's not really predictable. It's so I'm just trying to apply. I mean, from here, you can't apply to that much number of schools when you're in Nigeria because for some reasons. So, shout out to my poetry to Jennifer Filado. So with her help, I'm trying to apply to a couple of schools. I love Brown. I mean, I have Brown in mind. I have other schools, Washington, Alabama, Kentucky,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but yeah, it's a bit limited. But then I'm hoping if all of these work out, then I don't know, maybe towards the ending of next year. Yeah, but it's an unpredictable process. Very, very unpredictable.
Yeah, well, definitely, but I have no doubt that you'll be successful. It is interesting, hearing you talk about the work you're writing on being not out of a place of anger, but about a place of praise and appreciation. You have that great line about wanting to reflect the light in one of the poems in Exiled. And is that what you mean by wanting to reflect the light? And do you find that more difficult in a way than reflecting, pain and difficulty?
Yeah, I wouldn't say difficult. I would say it's a slower process.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to see what you are angry at. It's so easy to see what someone is doing wrong. But sometimes when, talking about happiness and love, it's a slower process. You have to sit back, especially now. I mean, it's been years, when all of this happened, and now that I would say I'm grateful, very grateful. Before my dad, when I wrote Exiled, when it was a point when my dad was really very sick, and I started trying to write the opposite of Exiled when things got worse last year. He died earlier this year in February. So I wouldn't say it's more difficult, but I would say it's slower. You know, it forces me to push bias. And then I have to there are moments where I didn't even know about, and I'm like, oh, okay, someone came home with roasted corn. This was actually a form of love. I mean, he went out and he thought about it this way. So I would say it's a slower process. It's a process that forces me to be in the moment. Anger is easy. It's passive. You just shout and you get away with it.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely really insightful. Well, let's close out with that last poem we have, Conversations with Alter Ego.
Okay, so yeah. So one word for this particular poem, Conversations with Alter Ego. It was a poem I wrote. It's filled with a lot of imagination. I was just imagining, it's more of writing a poem where you are trying to be someone else that you are not, where you are trying to be the person you are writing about. So this is why I titled it Conversations with Alter Ego. So yeah, Conversations with Alter Ego. Drunk as fuck is the way you climb fastest towards God, a religion of glass. We are outside your room and you are outside your body, which somehow is a kind of room. Every time you fall, you claim the floor is a miracle worth dancing to. I find you childlike. I find you weightless, alive, like a man on the roadside sitting on his head. Only an hour ago, we were adults with grief in our hearts. I still am one, standing here, thinking about my late father, thinking what if like him, I wake up someday unconscious, half my organs drowning in blood. But you call me towards the merciful beer. Drink, you say, let alcohol wash your soul clean. I was a man full of doubts, now I believe. Omniscient glass, fragile God of the table church. I kneel, a sacrificial lamb, pleading that you make a mouth out of me. There is a man dancing in the lights. There's lights dancing inside the man. Such miracle. No, not the man, but the way he burns. Almost beautiful, almost ruined.
Yeah, another beautiful poem. That was Conversations with Alter Ego. Chiwenite, thanks so much for being a guest and joining us today. It's been really such a pleasure to share your poems with everybody, and from your book Exiled and the newer poems too. Really insightful too, hearing your perspective. Really appreciate being here. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Tim. Thank you. I appreciate being here.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks. Yeah, so once again, That was Chiwenite Onyekwelu. You can find all of his work on a link tree. So the website would be Linktree. That's linktr.ee. That website for links. Then /ChiweniteOnyekwelu. So find all of his work all over the place there on that link tree. And now we're going to take a quick break and go to our prompt lines. And the prompt for this week from Katie was to write a poem about a time you were haunted and how you overcame the experience. So that was the prompt for this week. Now remember, max time on camera should be about 3 minutes to share a poem from this prompt. It's a 1-page maximum, remember. But we do want to keep it quick, so if it's a longer poem filling up the whole page, make sure you just jump right in. If it's a shorter poem, then it's not such a rush, but we do want to get to everybody and not have to, have everybody. So be mindful of that. I'm going to deploy the Zoom link on Facebook and YouTube, and then join us if you'd like to share a poem, but only if you have a poem from the prompts, from this prompt, that you'd like to share. And if so, join the Zoom. Otherwise, sit right where you are and keep watching poetry. That's the best place to do it, because then you get to see the poems as the poets read them. Now we're going to be back in just a moment with a whole lot more poetry. And we're back. Thanks so much for your patience as we get situated here with our prompt poems editor, our associate editor, and my wife, Katie Dozier. Hey, Katie, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I love that interview. I found it really inspiring. It makes me hopeful for the future of poetry. So
yeah, oh, it definitely does. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, there's places for it, and we need it, and it's great to hear it, be felt so strongly, for sure. So I forgot to promo the fact that we're going to be revealing our prompt poem of the month too. And so that's pretty exciting. We have a new prompt poet of the month, and we should be joined by them. Let's see. Yeah. So do you want to reveal who it is, Katie?
I do want to reveal that the prompt poet / poem, I guess we kind of use that interchangeably at this point, of the month is our own Chelsea McClellan. So hi, Chelsea.
Are you there, Chelsea?
Can you hear me?
There you go. Yeah.
Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah. So great to see you, and congratulations.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, Well, I have to confess that when you read this on the prompt lines, I had to hearken back to my poker face skills because I love this poem from the moment you read it first on the prompt lines. I've been, thinking so much about villanelles lately and thinking like, well, who is going to be the next great villanelle writer? And I think we are talking to the next great villanelle writer up there with Elizabeth Bishop. So I think this is a really stunning poem. Do you want to read it first and then we'll praise it more?
Thank you. Empathy. We all agree which pain is worst, between a fistful pulling hair and one strand yanked out from its source. Sometimes a lover's breath is scarce. Balloons will sometimes pop midair. We all agree which pain is worse, between a scare and death, of course, a shirt torn off by a hungry bear, or one strand yanked out from its source. I'd rather leave you by the hearse than by the spirit of despair. We all agree which pain is worse, a son too young to know remorse, roughly brushing his mother's hair, or one strand yanked out from its source. A mother's emptied, grieved mid-course, who'd wish her baby back from God. We all agree which pain is worse, one strand that's yanked out from its source.
Well, I have to go back to Friday to Critique of the Week, when you did not know that you've won Prompt Poet of the Month yet, but you left like a really brilliant comment because it happened that Tim was looking at a villanelle in the Critique of the Week. And I was wondering if you remember that comment. I'm putting you so massively on the spot. If you can like paraphrase it for us too.
Sure. I believe I was talking about how whenever you have a repeating form, every time you get to the refrain, you should be going away from it and then coming back to it. And every time go away someplace completely different. And it can be a range of types of places before you come back to it. So that we're not standing in the same spot the whole poem.
Yeah, that's just great advice for the villanelle form. And you do, right? We've published a villanelle of yours before. I know you've written a whole bunch of them. Is there a reason you're drawn to it, you think? Because you do it so well. It's true.
I guess I'm an obsessive person, and these forms lend themselves to obsessive natures. Yeah, that's probably the reality.
I guess we should say also this was written to the prompt, which was, oh God, I'm blanking now. This was write a poem that touches on hair. It was like too simple, too easy to forget there. And I was, I didn't expect that to be, usually there's one prompt that kind of dominates the submissions. There's by far the most there. And this was one where I to say about hair. And I didn't know this, but I learned a lot from looking at it. And also, I want to comment generally that the submissions were excellent this month. Really, so many ones that I was just like really excited to read multiple times. So that was great. So I ended up it took me a little bit more time than normal because I wanted to send out a little bit more personalized rejections because of that too. But I think we should say too that this is going to come out on Wednesday, which is Infant Loss Awareness Day. And I want to thank you for writing on that topic. I myself had 2 miscarriages, just part of the darkest, most difficult part of my life. And I think that talking about it more helps other people, going through things, and that we should seek to do that in poetry. So thank you so much for writing this.
Of course. And I agree. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So, that was Chelsea McClellan, and that's going to be Wednesday's poem, like we said. Empathy, a really wonderful villanelle as the prompt poem of the month for the month of September. And now how that works, if you're new to Rattle, you can share poems about the current prompt right now on the prompt lines, but then you can submit them by the end of the month, and we pick, or Katie picks, the best one. every month to share as part of the daily poem feed on Rattle the next month as the prompt poem of the month. So submit that through Submittable. Like anything else, there's a special category for it.
And then when it is the daily poem, that goes out to over 25,000 people.
That does, yeah. And even more if you sign up.
Yeah, sign up now. 25,001.
There you go. All right. So now we're going to go to the prompt for this week, though. And the prompt for this week was, once again, to remind everybody, right here, write a poem about a time that you were haunted and how you overcame the experience. So that was the prompt for this week. What was your poem, Katie? What'd you do with it?
Well, actually it was kind of nice because I wrote 2 poems this week. I'm only going to share one, of course. But this one came up during our Haibin workshop yesterday because I feel like I would have felt guilty, like, if you're saying, hey, okay, now everyone write Haibin, like, I wrote a Haibin too. And it came about in kind of this fun way. So this is so funny though, because I know I was like, okay, I need to learn how to pronounce this before I read this poem. And I just can't. I've watched the YouTube. Mm-hmm. I try to pronounce it with the little moving lips. I can't do it. So we're just going to try it. Pepelo, no idea?
Sure. Sounds good.
I'm haunted by all the names. I'm going to start over. Pepelo, no idea? I'm haunted by the names of all the things I'll never know. They call out to me with their muddled moans. What type of roses are blooming in my backyard? I just call them red. A thorn is not being able to say what should be said. I don't know where to deadhead flowers, but I cut anyway. My shears snip at the green. The path is full of leaves I cannot name, and my steps dissolve them into what will be new again. Landing on Wikipedia. Butterflies.
Yeah, well, that's great, and I can't believe you wrote that in that little segment that we had for to write down some rough drafts of Haibin during the workshop. I can confirm it because I saw you out there writing away.
The kitchen, I gave you the office.
Yeah, definitely.
And then Papillon No Idea is like the big name for butterflies or something. I'm sorry, I'm not sciencey, but it was so fun because I was looking on Wikipedia for the title, and that's an actual name. It has no idea.
Yeah.
Maybe I should commit to never learning how to pronounce it.
It's probably no idea.
No idea. I'm
no
so
idea.
firm.
It's just too good. Yeah. All right. And so mine is this. I decided I'm going to start working on this new project more seriously. So this is another poem in a new series, a new book called Revolver. My father's father first appeared on the porch like a plumber, called for pipes. A brown bag clutched in his broad hands like a football he was afraid of fumbling. That held a gun was somehow a thing I knew intuitively, even at 9. The heavy heft of carbon-hardened metal pressing on crumpled paper was something I'd seen often, I suppose. The pistol itself, a police-positive .38 from the 30s, he'd found at a thrift store, wouldn't fire. He wanted my father to fix the timing. The tumbler's rotation wasn't aligned, and so the barrel wouldn't lock. Disassembling, they'd shave the cylinder stop. I'd listen for the last of the cellar stairs. But outside, he said, to me, son, is your father home? Those words were his only words. So it's a alliterative verse.
I like
narrative.
The way that that's in, it is in your mouth, the way that, handling something that feels like that sounds is so interesting too. The alliterative verse is back.
Yeah,
that's great.
I'm bringing back alliterative verse. I do. I want to do a whole book in alliterative verse.
Well, you're great
so
at
here
it.
we go.
Go for it. Good.
All right. So that was mine for this week. Let's see what everybody else has for us. And let's go with Laura Berg first.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Laura. It's great to see you.
This has all been really great so far. He was such a delicate and moving poetry and straight to the heart.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
No interference. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you
so
for
true.
that interview. Okay. Haunted not by mom, but by her early passing. I weave the bright ribbons of my life around the maypole of her absence. How to get past such a haunting? Try a seance, a poem, an embrace. Pour words into an empty vessel. Put there into what isn't. Stare so long into an empty glass that it fills. Stare into the desert until an oasis rises in the shimmer. Rustle of palms, air streaming into empty lungs. Stand on tiptoe and blow at a calder, one of her favorites, until its angelic blades begin to spin.
Yeah, beautiful poem.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for sharing that.
Thanks, Laura.
Yeah. There was Laura Berg with Haunted, not by Mom, but by her early passing. All right, and next let's go to Tina Denniclaw.
Thank you.
Hey,
So
Tina.
sorry.
Yeah. Oh, no, great to see you. Yeah, glad you could be
Great to
here.
see you guys. Yeah, me too. Yeah, I have to take my husband to work. So thanks for fitting me in. Okay, sacred delays. We've got to slow down. We're not going to hurry to work. All right. His face was quiet as a chapel hidden in the woods. Eyes soft and dark, unfocused, lost. He sat on the floor of freshman chemistry lab, against the corner wall, his backpack unopened, his hiking boots and blue jeaned knees jumbled in front of him. New tires, traveling 680 to see my friend. I planned to move to the outer lane and make the miles fly. But first, I wanted to get through a wet patch of road. I clicked my turn signal, then heard a warning wow from an ambulance that came up behind me. A rare bus ride. I sat behind the driver. She stopped at a light. I saw a motorcyclist ride up the side street, trying to make the yellow, but running the red. The driver was too high to see him as she started forward. He rested his arms on his knees, as young men do. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay.
I spoke in measured words. My cousin died yesterday. He met his accidents. I kept to the second lane, rounded a blind curve, and saw two cars wrecked in the outer lane where I had planned to be. Oh. That's all I could utter to the bus driver, but it was enough. Of all my students, through the years, I knew him least and also best. It was the first day of class, so I didn't know his name. His grief lives with me still.
A really touching memory and poem. Thanks so much for sharing
Tina.
that, Tina.
Thank you. Okay, everybody stay safe out there.
Yeah, definitely. And you too, drive safe on that drive to work.
Thank you.
It was Tina Denniclaw with Sacred Delays. Let's go next to Nivedita Karthik. It should be very late, I think, where Nivi is.
I just can't keep track of the
Hi,
hours.
Jen.
Sorry.
Hi,
Hi,
Kate.
Nivi.
Hey, Nivi. Yeah, it should. I think it's like
How are
what,
you guys
2 a.m.
doing?
or something.
1:15.
Okay. Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for being here and so patient.
course,
It's great to
I
see you. Hope you don't have to get up too
I
early in
missed
the
last
morning.
week. That's all right. I missed last week, so I'm not planning to miss this week.
Well, thanks so much. I'm glad you could be here. So, what do you have to share for us?
A poem about memories haunting us.
That's very on topic. Yes.
Haunted. There was a time I was haunted. Not by ghosts, but by my own clumsy thoughts, tripping over regrets like misplaced shoes, whispering, "What if?" in the dark, as if the universe needed my drama. They haunted me with endless reruns. That awkward moment in 5th grade, that time I waved at someone who didn't see me, and my own inner critic, louder than a traffic jam. But I fought back with laughter, the kind that makes tears spill, the kind that turns fears into punchlines. Eventually, they packed their bags and left, probably bored of my comedy show, and I learned to live with the ghosts, Not quite terrifying, more like quirky roommates who never stop talking, but at least keep things interesting.
Well, that was great. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that. I love that the ghost is quirky roommates.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. I wanted to make it kind of lighthearted, but still touch on an important topic. So I hope I achieved that. Yeah.
Great.
Definitely did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Nnamdi. Always great to see you.
Sleep
Thank
well.
you, guys. Have a good day. Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it was Nivedita Karthik with Haunted. Let's go next to Danny Mask, who I don't know if Danny Mask has been on the prompt lines before, but he's participated around. He's had a Poetry Respond poem and been the Ekphrastic Challenge artist. Hey, Danny, how you doing?
Hey, doing good, man. Doing really good. You guys look great. I'm glad you got a second banana there. That's good.
Thanks, Danny.
That's great.
You have a lot more energy. I'm telling you. It's nice.
Yeah, well, I feel it too. Yeah.
Well, I forgot to buy bananas at the store, and I just remembered. So thanks for that.
I'm doing good. Okay, well, this one is about haunting, but I started thinking about haunting really is how do I make peace with memories that linger, really, because that happens a lot for me. And so that's the first thing that came up for me. And thank you so much for the prompt.
Great.
Do you get a copy of this?
Yeah, we put it up on the screen for everyone else to see. Yeah.
Okay. So part 1, blue coat. Every winter I return to the same blue coat with its deep pockets. They remember more than I do, the warmth they hold and finding they still believe in me. The days come, snow against glass without sound. I wait for something to rise, for the love I no longer know to speak in a voice I've forgotten. The seam of a word opening where your mouth used to be, and time quietly turns it away. Part 2, Manifesto for Sadness. I will not apologize for my sadness. I will wear it like a winter coat, its pockets full of small ghosts. I will let it sit like sunlight on glass, quiet, unassuming, necessary. I will let it speak in whispers, in the seam of its words, and in the palm of my hand I will honor its weight. For it teaches me the shape of love, the space left by those I've lost, the small beauty passing slowly. I will not fill its silence with noise or shame. Or shame it with cheerful endings. I will sit with it, as with a loyal companion, and listen to what it has to show. I will write it down, line by line, until it becomes my own body, and breathes in the same ache, and knows it is not alone.
Yeah, great lines in that one, Danny. Thanks so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
You had a wonderful guest earlier. Thank you so much. I was in Peace Corps in Sierra Leone. It was nice to hear his accent. That was really nice.
Very cool. Well, it's cool to have you on, Danny. Hope you can come back again. I assume like the regular time is too late, maybe, but it's great to have you if you come back
I'm
next
wasted
Monday.
by the time you guys. This is my perfect time. But I'll try next time, okay?
All right.
Well, great. Well,
Very
thank
cool.
you.
Well, good to see you, Danny.
Love you guys. Thank you.
Yep, take care. It was Danny Mask with Blue Coat. Let's go next to another first-time caller, I believe, Michelle Rosario.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey, Michelle. Great to see you. Yeah.
Yeah, first time here.
Great.
Excellent. Well, so glad you could join us. Where are you calling from?
I'm from Pennsylvania, Lebanon, Pennsylvania.
Great.
Excellent. Yeah. So what do you have for us?
So instead of a haunted house, it's a story about being haunted by the house. So this poem is Double F23. Double F23 was the name of my childhood house. I mean, address. Houses don't have names, but prisons do. My father built the house of his dreams on the shoulders of the old house. I'm still forced to visit his magnus opus when I close my eyes to sleep. There were roses by the entrance and herbs to prepare various teas. There was also barbed wire. Houses don't use thorns for safety, but prisons do. We had warm beds, we had meals, we had everything, so it seemed. We had uniforms, we had chores, we had lights out, we had fear. Houses don't compel you to devise an escape plan, but prisons do.
Yeah, really cool use of the prompts.
Yeah,
Thanks so much for sharing that, Miss L. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, and so glad. Hope you could come back soon.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Oh,
Thanks for
definitely.
being here.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was Michelle Rosario with double F23. Next up, let's go to Jared Campbell.
Hello.
Hey, Jared, great to see you.
Good to see you. So I did about a painting that I saw as a child. Eternal Conscious Torment. When I was very young, I saw a painting of the Last Judgment. It was dark. Lots of black and brown and orange and red. I don't remember whether there were monstrous demons or if it was a human hell, but I remember angels driving herds of naked sinners into burning lakes of tar. The burning terrified me, but agreed with what I thought I knew of God and man. I looked deeper and realized that what transfixed me was the stickiness of the tar, the way it clung to flesh and never let the damned escape the burning lakes. Their eyes accused me of something I didn't understand. Justice is anger that burns offense away. Anger that clings forgets itself, changes into something other than anger, just as buried anger sours to resentment. Whatever mind imagined God would suffer anger that tortures but preserves its object, I fear that mind the way I once feared God.
Yeah, a little bit it turns around itself, and definitely a haunting painting to be thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that, Jared.
Thanks, Jared.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, that was Jared Campbell with Eternal Conscious Torment. Next, let's go to Amanda Harris.
All right. So this prompt for me was a little more challenging than the average prompt, and I'm just going to get right to it.
Okay.
Ghosts. Ghosts are a cut in the eye. I have witnessed such ghosts. When I was 11, I had a dream in which a hooded man played guitar on top of the roof. Like a saint or maybe a fool, I chased the hooded man, suspecting he was a member of the Beatles. The hooded man in this dream had no teeth or no body to call home. Like the protagonist in Imagine, his infinite inner dreamer knew only sky.
How interesting. I have to ask, were you listening to the Beatles when you wrote this song, Amanda Harris?
Yes. So I am a very massive Beatles fan. I actually, on the website Fictionaut, have a friend who's also a massive Beatles fan. So that all kind of factored into it.
Oh, well, that's awesome. I don't know if I quite reached the level. I consider myself a massive Beatles fan, but I'm sure I know nothing compared to you. So I don't want to spar there. But thanks so much.
Yeah, very cool. Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. There's Amanda Harris with Ghosts. Next, let's go to Brian O'Sullivan.
Former prompt poet of the month.
Yeah, passing the reign, passing the crown, I guess.
I'm so happy to pass to Chelsea because we're in a workshopping group together. So 2 in a row for the Monday night meter makers. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's quite the group there.
Yeah, it is quite a group. Christiana's in it too.
Oh.
But anyway, it's kind of long, so I'll start. It's kind of a literary haunting. Haunted by J. Al. Let us go then, you and I, you said. Shit, now? I said. I had a psych exam to study for, and my mind's nose could smell my laundry starting to molder in the basement of Earl Hall, and I really didn't have time for this nonsense. Not at all. I could almost hear your chains rattle, and I figured you were about to brandish John the Baptist's head and start waving it around. Probably get poetic blood all over my damn dorm room, which was already a super fun sight. So I shrugged and followed you down certain half-deserted streets, muttering retreats, etc., yada yada, you know. I was getting angry. I was getting antsy. So I thought, let's go make our fucking visit, all right? But you kept yammering about some girls who kept yammering about Michelangelo for some silly reason that I still don't know. And I knew you were too afraid to make the visit and to learn what love is and what it isn't. So I tried to tell you to just man up and go for it. But it was just then that I realized that I was only the silent listener in a dramatic monologue. And it was just like me to be a mere addressee of someone else's lament. And that's what sent you to me in the first place. You knew I was like you, trapped in my own silence or my own false voice. And so you thought I'd never tell on you, but would just be a pair of ragged claws scuttling along the floors of silent seas with you and drown with you among the hum of human static. It would not have been worth it, after all. But still, I owe you one, because I learned from you that I could laugh at us instead of being you. So I've come back to ask one overwhelming question. Want to go measure out our lives with tequila shots and laughter?
Well, that's great. Very fun poem, Brian, once again. Yeah.
Thanks. I want the haunted house version of that poem. Like, turn that poem into a haunted house.
Oh, that would be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. That
So I have
sounds like a
Halloween
challenge,
decorations on the mind.
Too.
I came up with some today.
Oh,
So.
nice. Okay. Well, looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing that,
Brian.
It was Brian O'Sullivan with Haunted by JL. Okay. Next, let's go to Christiana Doucette then.
Hello.
Hey,
Hi,
Christiana. Yeah, great to see you.
Yeah.
Good to see you too. I'm so excited for Chelsea. And I totally missed it because my daughter had her piano lesson right during the time when the prompt poet was announced. So I'm going to be going back and catching that.
Great.
I have a poem. It was supposed to be a ballad, but I messed it up a little bit and I ended up using different end rhymes in each stanza instead of the same end rhymes all the way through. But I still liked it, so I kept it anyway.
Okay.
Great. Important to modify the form when you need to.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Modified the form.
Mm-hmm.
So this is braiding now and then. Tea-berry gum reminds my dad of then. The field behind the homestead where he played with all his aunts and uncles, 9, not 10, because one baby died too young, was laid to rest in Pennsylvania hills. Names fade into dusk's dark. They've moved the old fence post out front beside the road, cut down the glade. We sit with him, surrounded by his ghosts. A tango's notes spin from the radio, pull my tired grandparents to their feet. The tiles of the kitchen bungalow turn dance floor for a moment as they greet the melody. They two-step to a beat they know by heart, from window to doorpost and back. Gently, I push back from my seat and sit with them, surrounded by their ghosts. A plate of haddock, brown rice, mint sweet tea set me at my grandma's kitchen table. A buttery bite, I'm there on Grandpa's knee, passed through the portal the taste enables. I join myself to watch my grandma label leftover Tupperware and sprinkle toast. I chew each bite slowly as I'm able and sit with them, surrounded by my ghosts. The senses soften present tense and braid the now to then with ribbons of almost. And when the memories love, I'd keep the trade and sit with it, surrounded by my ghosts.
Yeah, well, I love the way the rhymes run through that poem. Yeah, braiding now and then. Thanks so much for sharing that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was Christiana Doucette. And next, let's go to Dick Westheimer.
Hello.
Hey, Dick.
Hey, Dick. Great to see you.
Hey. I just love that interview today. I'm in a poetry group with another Nigerian poet, a craft group, and it's that same sort of intensity and just I love the both poets, and they have a lot in common.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, very cool.
So a haunting. I wrote a bunch of haunting poems this week.
Oh, nice.
But I'll read the shorter one today, Temporary Exorcism. This autumn day is a haunting of its own kind, The sun's risen later than yesterday. Today, behind the dying maple, tomorrow south of that, the leaves falling from the ash are brown and broken from their branches before they could become the color of sunset. And settled on the field, the morning fog hides 1,000 mice from the hawk. I think I'll skip my morning walk, my coffee, my to-do list, and crawl back between the sheets. I thumb my phone, dumbly scroll X. Before I pull the shades, I'll check my texts. There's a pic my daughter sent. She and Rem, age 6, rode their bikes 40 miles to a campsite and awoke to pancakes Rem's dad cooked over an open fire. I sit on the edge of my bed, then stand. I think I'll go out for a run. I pass the garden and see ripe peppers needing to be picked. Sumac leaves burn autumn bright. A book of Leonard Cohen poems waits inside on my desk. I think I'll try again tomorrow to see what kind of haunting it will be.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I'm reminded of that. What's the Dr. Seuss book where the kid won't get up? He just wanted to go back to bed. I love that one. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that, Dick.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. Bye.
Bye. Yeah, it's Temporary Exorcism with Dick Westheimer. And next, let's go to Molly House.
Hi.
Hi, Molly.
Hey, Molly. Great to see you.
Great to see you. Great to be here. Great to hear these wonderful poems. I sent you a replacement with some edits from the first version. I don't know which one will be on the screen.
Okay, well, let me make sure I'm pulling up the last one here. Okay, I definitely am. So go ahead.
Thank you. This is a Haibun called Lightning. At 24, I thought I'd found my one true love. I breathed him, dissolved into him, believed our connection was holy. He promised to heal my childhood grief by never leaving. When my forever love told me he'd found someone else to be his true love, he did it in a letter, a cowardly way that should have disqualified him as an object of forever love, and therefore the ghost of love who showed up did not deserve to take up occupancy in my spirit, should have probably been thrown out of haunting school. But that shadowy wraith brought me low and rendered other romances, even my first marriage, partial, pale, lacking heat. I now suspect I couldn't risk breaking and burning again. Nearing 50, twice as old as the first time, I met someone who could hold a candle to that first bright light, which I finally stopped calling my lost true love. Second strike could kill. Worth it.
Oh, very sweet. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that, Molly.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Yeah, that was Molly House with Lightning.
I like the title a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Next, let's go to Terry Jude Miller.
Hey guys, it's good to see you.
Nice to see you, Terry.
Yeah, great to see you. That's why I love the afternoon episodes because we get different people that don't usually get to make it live. Yeah,
I have to single Terry out too and say he had very good prompt poems he submitted this month.
Nice. He's
thank you very much.
Poems too.
He's just on fire. Yep.
Thank you very much. The child. The physician said you were an impossibility, that the gates of heaven were locked, forbidding your falling. But there are wonders that define themselves. Take context and make paper boats of it. Sail our sadness away in their thin hulls. Why is it we must be haunted by heartbreak until we reconcile our inability to deny it? There was an afternoon when I first heard the news, and the world twirled around my beloved and me, she afraid to say as though speaking it would fracture it, like a whispered wish would not come true. When you came, you announced yourself as loudly as your small lungs could trumpet. Your mother and I danced to the music as we lifted you from your crib, where angels placed you softly as candlelight.
Yeah, what a touching poem. That powerful ending. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that, Terry.
Terry. Nice to see you.
Thank you so much. It's good to see you two guys.
Yeah. There's Terry Miller with The Child. Let's go to Michelle Kimball.
Hello.
Hi,
Michelle.
Hi. All right, so my poem is titled Possessed. And it says, haunting conjured crow's wings enveloping, feathers splay and retract, one wing different hues, brightest white when encircling, dark lustered purple black when stretching out. Is this possession cherished or reviled? If it is the former, then stay, watch over me, lonely no more.
Well, what an interesting poem. Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was Michelle Kimball with Possessed. Yeah. The haunting, though, I have to say, I like doing the afternoon show, but haunting would be much better if it was dark out.
Yeah, well,
one
we're
thing
bringing the darkness ourselves, Tim.
Yeah, okay. Let's see. Let's go next to Carla Schwartz.
Hi.
Hey, Carla.
Hi.
Carla. Yeah, great to see you.
Great to be here. And I have I did catch the reading today, and I do have a short haibin, which I hope you think meets the prompt.
Great.
And it's called Pop Quiz. Sometimes I wake in the middle of the night and I haven't prepared the test for the next day. Or maybe it's the lecture, or I'm in the classroom with only my t-shirt and no pants. It's been so many years since I've taught. No matter. My teaching days still haunt my dreams. Autumn maples, the last leaves clinging, silent lessons.
Yeah,
that's really nice.
Yeah, love that image to go, leaping from the prose part. Yeah, and I definitely have those things. I think, does everybody have those dreams?
Mine is I can't find my class, or I'm in a play and I forgot my lines.
Yeah, I have the one where I didn't show up to the class all semester.
Isn't that just a reality?
That's the problem. I didn't show up to many of the classes, and then had to take the test and. But I don't know.
It all worked out.
It all worked out in the end.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for listening, and thanks so much for this afternoon.
Yeah,
that was really
Carla.
nice.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's Carla Schwartz with Pop Quiz. Next, let's go to Desi. Are you there still, Desi? Maybe not. Anybody else left on the Zoom we haven't got to? I don't think so. So, okay, that's going to wrap up the Zoom, I think. And that's going to wrap up the prompt lines portion of the show. So really good time today, too. Now we're going to do our haiku. And we decided, Katie should include a haiku, too.
Well, by we, you asked me to. I sound like a jerk if I'm like, we decided this.
No, I did.
You kindly asked me
we
to.
had the haiku for so long. And then I switched, and it was your idea to switch to just writing haiku about the week, because then you get haiku that actually work outside of the story.
Well, they still work, but
I do like that practice. But then, why not we both share a haiku? It'd be much better. And you're the star haiku poet. So
well, thank you. I accepted the invitation.
You did.
Would have been awkward if I didn't want to, I suppose, but I did want to. So
okay,
we didn't have any problems. Okay,
yeah.
So I'm gonna try to make them always very week relevant. So we were at a Lumineers concert on Friday night, which was super fun. Honestly, we had a really bad experience at Counting Crows because they were awful, and I was holding my breath. It's not just that you go see a band and you leave thinking less of them every time, right? Lumineers, I walked away loving them, walked in really liking them. I thought they were great.
Yeah, definitely one of the best band concerts I've been to. They just love the music.
Yeah, they were super into it and very present and real. So
yeah.
All right, so here's my haiku.
Okay.
Cell phones at the concert, Lumineers. Somebody lights up, holds their phone, which I never do because I just like watching people do it. But
it is fun to watch.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I wrote about the Lumineers concert too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and this was my haiku from that. Mm-hmm. And I picked it before you'd pick yours. We didn't know.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
so
cool.
Anyway, this is mine. 10,000 at the concert, just us.
No.
That is how it feels when we go places like that.
Oh, that's sweet.
And but it was really a great concert.
Yeah.
It really was. And the lawn seating back there.
Yeah, we sit in the lawn in the cheap seats. Yeah, it was nice.
It was really nice, yeah. So anyway, that was one of the highlights of our week, and that was the haiku of the week. Now, what's next week's prompt going to be, Katie?
We are going to write a haiku sequence inspired by the seasons. So if we wanted to get more technical about this, we could say we're going to involve kigo, which is, the term for seasonal words. And we're going to write a haiku sequence. And this one is partially planned because we have a theater school commitment for one of the kids where we have to have a slightly short series. But it's been a while since we've done a haiku sequence, and we've gotten great poems both times we did a haiku sequence for the prompt lines out of that. So I'm excited to hear. Of course, if you're new to haiku, check out Michael Dylan Welch's No 575 essay is my advice.
Yeah, or his Rattlecast episode.
Yes, that's
watch that.
Yeah.
Or Roberta Beery's, but Michael Dylan Welch is probably the best explaining haiku. He's Captain Haiku after all.
For a reason.
On social media. But yeah, check those out, and definitely the concept of haiku is having a cut between two
and
worlds.
Tim's amazing
two
definition.
worlds in one breath.
Two worlds in one breath.
That's what haiku, not 575. That's just a micro poem that happens to be
You
syllabic.
can check out our episodes on the poetry space on haiku. There are a bunch.
Check those out as well. But yeah, that's a haiku prompt for next week. We'll keep the prompt line short so we can pick up Joe right before her theater workshop ends.
Just barely.
Just barely.
Yeah.
And it should be a lot of fun.
Yep.
Now, next week's guest on the Rattlecast is going to be Al McGinnis. So Al McGinnis, we've published him a few times in Rattle, a really wonderful, more narrative-based poet. His new book is Fellow Survivors, New and Selected Poems. But really wonderful poet. Looking forward to getting to know him better, having published him over the years. That's Al McGinnis, Rattlecast number 314, Monday, October 20th. The regular time again, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Hope to see you there. Hope you have a great week. In the meantime, and we'll talk to you later. Goodbye.
Goodbye.